Welcome to the Township of Abington's Board of Commissioners meeting for Thursday, July 12th, 2018. And may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Myers? Here. Brodsky?
Here.
Brockman?
Here.
Esposito?
Here.
Sanchez?
Here.
Thompson?
Here.
Schreiber?
Here.
Hacker?
Here.
Spiegelman? Wade?
Here.
Wesley?
Here.
Sapone?
Here.
Bowman?
Here.
Klein?
Here.
Lucas?
Here. Be advised, Commissioner Spiegelman is excused. May everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to make the following announcement that for the purpose of public comment, we will be treating tonight's board meeting as a committee meeting since there were no committee meetings in the month of July, with the exception of the Finance Committee. As such, we will be following the same rules regarding public comment after each agenda item. I would like the committee chairs to introduce their agenda items and to manage their respective committees, including public comment and all pertinent business of their committees. So at this time, we're going to open the meeting with presentations, and I'd like to call on Chief Patrick Malloy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members of the board, Manager Manfredi, members of the audience, it is my distinct honor this evening to introduce the Abington Police Department's next Sergeant, Sergeant Troy Senni. Troy, if you come up here. Before I introduce Judge Kessler and Troy's wife, Brittany, I would like to just give a quick background. Troy grew up in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. He went to Downingtown West High School. After Downingtown West, he attended Westchester University, where he earned a bachelor's degree in science and criminal justice. Troy joined our police department back in 2011, and he served in the patrol division for his entire 7-year career at this point. But in the patrol division, he was selected to be one of our field training officers, which is a highly sought out position, very competitive, and critical to the future of our department because he's responsible for training, imparting the culture to all of our new officers, and he's trained several officers over the years and evaluated them for a full year, at which point they have to make a decision whether to retain or some, unfortunately, do not stay with us. Troy is also a member of our SWAT team. He served on the SWAT team for the last 3 years, and he is also a use of force instructor for less lethal weapon systems. Troy is joined tonight by his wife, Brittany, and his 2 sons, Chase and Oliver, who are very well behaved. So if now I'd like to ask Judge Kessler to please join us, and Brittany, who will be holding the Bible.
So, Officer Senni, you placed your left hand on the Bible. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Troy Senni, do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the Township of Abington, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a sergeant for Abington Township, and will obey the rules and regulations, policies and procedures governing all sworn members of the Abington Township Police Department. Congratulations, Sergeant.
All right, thank you, Commissioners, first and foremost.
It's an honor to stand in front of you here today. Thank you, Chief Malloy, Lieutenant Porter, and the entire command staff for instilling your trust in me to carry on the legacy of this department. To my family, my wife, and my 2 sons, thank you for all the support. You guys have given me everything I've ever asked for, and I couldn't be happier. So thank you, everyone, today, and thank you.
And we have one additional presentation this evening. If I can call K-9 Sergeant Jen Doyle to join me. Jen doesn't know that I wanted to give a quick background on some of the accomplishments that Jen has done, even though we're here this evening, where I'm going to ask Commissioner Schreiber to join us when we do the presentation to the PA K-9 Assistance Foundation, which Jen will get into later. But we've seen Jen Doyle all over the community doing great work with Bella, but I just wanted to read a couple highlights. The United States Police K-9 Association Region 6 officers do a yearly patrol team certification called the Patrol Dog 1, or in the K-9 business, PD1. This certification process is 2 days long and includes obedience, agility, criminal apprehension, and human scent detection. From 2015 to 2017, Sergeant Doyle and K-9 Bella have certified and competed in this PD1 trials. Through their efforts, they have earned an unprecedented and an impressive 11 individual K-9 team placement trophies, culminating last year, in which I happened to be there, where there were about 40 teams there, and Jen and K-9 Bella finished first among all those teams, which is quite an accomplishment. Teams coming from Jersey, Delaware, Philadelphia, so she's done an outstanding job. This K-9 team also excels in explosive detection certification, as well as by earning their annual regional certification in explosive detections through the United States Police K-9 Association. She's done this since 2014. In 2015 and 2018, Sergeant Doyle and K-9 Bella earned their National Odor Recognition Certification through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. This is a national recognition test, which is considered the federal gold standard for bomb dogs and their handlers, by the way. And in 2018, Sergeant Doyle and Bella participated in National United States Police K-9 Association scent detection trials and certification held in Galloway, excuse me. This national certification process is one of the most rigorous and difficult scent certification processes in the country. They represented the Abington Township Police Department very well, and this is the first time a K-9 team from Abington Township has earned this prestigious certification. So in addition to all that, Jen is on patrol, as you know, working with the platoon and available to serve other communities with patrol detection, scent detection, and explosive detection. Not to mention she's done over 100 community service related events, which we all know the community loves. So I just want to recognize Jen for an outstanding job. So please join me. And if Commissioner Schreiber could join us, we're going to do a presentation to the Police K-9 Assistance Foundation. I'll have Sergeant Doyle do that for us.
I'd like to call up Corporal Mike Decker from the Northampton Police Department as the president and co-founder of the PA K-9 Assistance Foundation, and board trustee Bernadette Wilkinson, please, for the presentation here. Just some background on the PA K-9 Assistance Foundation. It was founded in 2010 for the sole purpose and mission of providing equipment and training for K-9 teams across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to help keep us safe and help keep communities safe. In 2018, I requested a grant from the PA K-9 Assistance Foundation for explosive detection equipment, including a tripwire kit, explosive kit 1, the indoor bunker to safely maintain that kit inside, as well as a mobile bunker. This cost is approximately $4,700 that the township would have had to have paid. Graciously, the PA K-9 Assistance Foundation has given us that grant and has supplied us with this incredible training opportunity. Never before in Abington Township have we had the opportunity to train our explosive detection canines to this level. I'd like to thank the PA K-9 Assistance Foundation, Corporal Mike Decker, and Bernadette Wilkinson for bestowing this great gift on us. Thank you so much.
So this certificate is presented to the PA Canine Assistance Foundation in appreciation for your generous support of the Abington Township Police Department's Canine Unit, presented today, July 12, 2018, and thank you for supporting the Abington Township Police Department and enhancing our canine training program. Thank you to you both.
Thank you again. Thank you again. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll take a brief intermission to allow the family to leave the room.
Did you email it? Oh, then everybody else comes through.
Okay, we'll resume the meeting at this time. At this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Pat Vahey, who has a presentation to make.
Okay, let's go on June Parkinson.
Okay, is this on? Yeah. So June, it is an honor to present this to you tonight. We're here to bestow upon June Parkinson the Robert Montgomery Award.
Excuse me, Commissioner Vahey, check to see if the microphone is on. It doesn't sound like it's on.
Should I speak louder?
Thank you.
But June is so much more than just an environmental advocate. June is a true community leader. As a commissioner, I look to June for information and for support. And she's been at this for a very long time. Among the many, many things she does for Glenside and Abington Township as a whole, she is the keystone of the Glenside Patriotic Association's Glenside 4th of July Parade. And I know they could not do this whole parade without you. But today we're here specifically to honor you for your environmental advocacy. And Glenside is so much better for you. Specifically, the work that you've done to improve the Keswick Avenue underpass, it is so much improved and looks so great these many years that you've been working on it. And we thank you so much. If I may read from you this citation. The Abington Township Board of Commissioners expresses its sincere appreciation for your dedication to maintaining the Keswick Avenue train underpass by bringing together volunteers from Cheltenham and Abington Township under your leadership, having them join forces and clean the area of trash, mulch the shrubs, and had donated plants each year in honor of Earth Day, exemplifies the spirit of this Environmental Leadership Award. The Board of Commissioners, in the name of the entire township, shows its appreciation for your community involvement and dedication to Abington Township by presenting with the 2018 Robert W. Montgomery Jr. Award. Thank you so much, June.
Thank you, Commissioner Vahey. The next item on the agenda is public comment for items on the agenda. We're going to bypass that because I announced earlier that public comment is going to be made after each agenda item because we're going to treat tonight's board meeting as a committee meeting.
We have somebody who came tonight whose commissioner was not available to help them, who would like to speak first because she can't stay. Would you please allow that to happen?
Yes, okay, we'll allow that if no one objects. Yes, come to the microphone, ma'am. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Phyllis Redman, and I live at 540 Wanamaker Road.
I live in the Bader Creek floodplain. And about 12 years ago, there was a buyout, which I was denied because we're twin homes and they would not, my neighbor didn't want to sell, so they wouldn't let me. We have flooded twice in the past 5 years. Last year, I think it was, or the year before maybe, they put a pipe in draining even more water into the creek from Bader Road, and it's nerve-wracking. And now I don't know what's happening. I don't know if this is on the agenda or not, but with where they're taking down the Abington Library, and I hear talk that there is going to be even more water funneled down into Bader Creek. And I have a great concern about that. And I just want to bring it to everybody's attention. John isn't here tonight, so I wanted to speak to that. I wanted to let that be known.
Okay, can I ask a question? What agenda item does this pertain to?
I don't know that it's on the agenda.
Okay.
I just was told I could speak about it, so.
All right, I just want the clarification. I got confused there.
Okay, we don't. Hard for her to stay through a whole meeting, so she wouldn't stay, and she couldn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank
All right.
you.
Thank you very
for
much.
hearing
Thank you for your comments. All right, at this time, I'd like to call on Vice President Stephen Klein for approval of the minutes and for approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you, President Luker. And as mentioned before, the consent agenda will only include the Finance Committee meeting agenda items that would fit under the consent agenda and the meeting minutes. So I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through E listed on the agenda, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners or staff? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
And that concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Klein. At this time, we'd like to move on to unfinished business, and I'd like to call on Commissioner Ben Sanchez, Chair of the Code and Land Use Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Allow a minute for everyone to get settled here. I didn't think so. Okay, Commissioner Sanchez.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. We have two items of unfinished business tonight on the Administrative Code and Land Use Committee. ACL 1. This would be a motion to approve the minor subdivision application of Horacio Roan, Jennifer Park, Scott Titleman, and Jamie Frey for the property located at 936 Morden Road, and to grant the waiver of Section 146-27 of the Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance related to the installation of sidewalks. The granting of the waiver is subject to a note being placed on the minor subdivision plan that the waiver granted from this Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance, Section 146-27, relating to the installation of sidewalks, is granted only for the minor subdivision application of Horacio Roan, Jennifer Park, Scott Titleman, and Jamie Fry, approved by Resolution Number 18-30 of the Abington Township Board of Commissioners. Any future work at 936 Morden Road that 1, requires subdivision that creates a buildable lot, and/or 2, requires land development approval, shall be required to install sidewalks and curbing and shall not be eligible for a waiver request. And I believe we have the applicant's attorney here this evening, and Ms. Von Spreckelson, you could, if you have some comments, I assume. Please.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Julie Von Spreckelson. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Eastburn and Gray. I'm here tonight on behalf of co-applicants Horacio Roan and Jennifer Parkey. They are the owners of 936 Morden Road. This is a simple lot line change. It's not creating a buildable lot. It's not creating any type of development on this property. The co-applicants are Scott Titleman and Jamie Fry, and they own 1407 Mill Road, which abuts the Roan and Parkey property. And we have reviewed the resolution of approval as drafted by the township solicitor, and we are fine with the resolution except for the condition on the waiver. Oop, now I'm really loud, sorry. Got even louder. We're fine with the resolution as drafted except for the condition on the waiver. And the reason that we're not fine with the condition on the waiver is because it's unfair, it's unreasonable, and it actually violates your subdivision and land development ordinance. and I'll explain it to you, but just real quick, again, this is just a simple little lot line change. What's happening is Morden Road property is conveying to the Mill Road property, and you can see it in your booklets. I did hand out a booklet, and in tab 1 is the subdivision lot line change plan. And you can see that the Morden Road property is conveying about 8,269 square feet, and that's in the red area, the red hatched area, to the Mill Road property. And what that does is it not only benefits the two abutting property owners, it benefits the township, because these two parcels, as you can see, are so irregularly shaped, which is not permitted by your subdivision land development ordinance, number 1. And 2, this is going to help increase the non-conforming nature of the Mill Road property. It's non-conforming in lot size. So we're actually making the Mill Road property much more conforming to the ordinance in 2 respects: lot size and also in the shape of the lot. In addition, there's really no backyard, as you can see. It's triangular in shape, the Mill Road property, and there's no backyard. And in fact, they have some encroachments on the Morden Road property. There's a shed and a driveway on the Morden Road property. So what we're trying to do is make it much more symmetrical. Instead of a triangular shape that has frontage all along Dale Road, we're making it rectangular. So we're making it much more symmetrical. The Mill Road property then is giving the Morden Road property 3,551 square feet, and that's in the blue area, the blue hatched area on the plan. And then that way, that property can gain access to Dale Road, which it doesn't have at this point. So again, we're good with the waivers. We appreciate that the waivers in the resolution are being granted. We can go through all the waivers if you want, or I can just address our one issue.
Ms. Franz, can I interrupt for a second? I think some of the commissioners are, at least on this side of the room, are having trouble finding what parts of your exhibit that you're referring to when you're looking at the plan.
Okay.
So if you could just go back and because it doesn't appear, you're referencing colors, and I'm hearing that people are saying there are no colors on.
It's very faint.
It's very late, but it's in the upper right-hand corner.
Well, this might be the older side of the room, so we may be having trouble seeing. I included myself in that, Commissioner
I would be happy to
Gillespie.
come up and show you if you're having trouble seeing it. So as you can see, the way it exists today, it's just a triangle. It's a triangle with no backyard. And you can see how grossly oversized the Morden Road property is. Grossly oversized, whereas the Mill Road property is grossly undersized, according to your ordinance. And it's very irregular in shape. So really, what we're doing here is, again, we're making it much more conforming to the ordinance. So this is a good thing. This is a really good thing for the township as well. So we requested a number of waivers, and they're all waivers that are routinely granted by this township, always granted when it comes to lot lines. So that's why I wasn't going to go through all the waivers were requested, because I believe in the resolution, all the waivers are okay except for just the one.
I think you could focus on this, safe to focus on the sidewalk waiver. I don't want to speak for anyone if they.
And I appreciate that. I will do that. So I did hand out an exhibit booklet, so just so you know what the tabs are. The tab 1 is the site plan. The tab 2 are photos, which I'll get to. The tab 3 is a sidewalk cost estimate, and the tab 4 is the sidewalk area detail. So I just want to explain real quickly why we're requesting this waiver and what our hardship is, because what we have to do is we have to show a hardship here in order to get a waiver granted. So if you look at the photos in tab 2. They were taken from Google Earth, and it shows progression along the property line of Morden Road from Mill Road. And you can see the topography where the sidewalks would have to go are on a major slope. It's sloped. They would have to have extensive regrading of that entire frontage. It's also heavily vegetated. All that vegetation is going to have to be ripped out in order to put sidewalk in. There's utility poles, Pico poles that would have to be moved. There's some street signs that would have to be moved in order to put sidewalks here. So we did an estimate, and the estimate was done by Nick Rose, who's sitting next to me as the project engineer. $30,000, just about $30,000 to put sidewalk in on a lot line change where we are not building anything and we are not subdividing. We're not creating a new lot. Just a simple little lot line change. So that's the hardship. And it's not contrary to public interest because it's a sidewalk going nowhere. It's in the middle of a block. If you look at those photos, and you can see it in tab 4 too, it shows the sidewalk area detail. It's in the middle of Morden Road. So there's no sidewalk at all across the street from Morden Road, none, zero. And on either side of the Huron property, there's absolutely no sidewalk. So we're going to put sidewalk in the middle of a road where there's no other sidewalk. If the purpose was to create a safe path to that train station, which is what I've heard, there are so many properties that would have to install this sidewalk in order to make that happen. And in fact, in 2016, there was a property that was granted the waiver without any condition. They were granted the sidewalk waiver without any condition or restriction placed on it. And I'm going to go through all of the subdivisions that were granted that waiver without any restriction. But it also creates a safety hazard because if you're putting sidewalk in the middle of a block, so what's someone supposed to do? Run up the side of the road and then jump on that sidewalk and then run the rest of the way? It makes it even more dangerous condition than not having a sidewalk. Further, that road, Morden Road, is undersized. It's not even up to code. It's 37.4 feet wide. It has to be 50. So what happens when this township decides that they want to come in a couple of years from now and say, we're going to widen the road because it really needs to be 50 feet because that's what the requirement of the ordinance is. Guess what? You have to rip out your sidewalk. Thanks for putting it in, a sidewalk going nowhere in the middle of a road, but now you're going to have to rip it out. So these are numerous reasons why this condition being placed on this plan is so unfair, unreasonable, and I'm going to tell you why it violates your saldo.
If you would look, could I don't want to interrupt the flow of your case too, but
sure.
You understand we're asking for the note on the plan at this time, so the sort of parade of horribles you went through doesn't kick in at this moment. It would only be in the future if these other items were met, like a buildable lot created or the a different land development that would kick in the ordinance as it should be. So we're actually, at this point, we're requesting a compromise position. You don't have to do this at the moment, but if you build further on it, then it will kick in. I'm a little perplexed as to why that.
Because that's already a requirement of the ordinance. So this board is not losing anything. If somebody comes back in and wants to subdivide it, don't grant the waiver next time.
Well,
don't grant, it's all in your power.
Same token, you're not losing anything either. I mean, you have this note on the plan, and it would be the same as doing nothing by that argument.
Well, no,
so.
that's not true, because somebody could come back in and ask for the waiver. You're making us put a note on the plan that says if anybody tries to subdivide this, they have to install sidewalks. They can't even ask for a waiver. So now you're binding a future board somewhere down the road, years down the road maybe, you're binding a future board to this. They have to require it, and who knows what the conditions of the property are going to be at that time. What if the road what if you decide to widen the road? Who knows what could happen? Well, then these people are stuck because now they have to do it, and they can't do it physically.
Well,
so what happens at that point? I mean, there's no reason. You're not losing anything by not putting this note on the plan.
I argue the contrary. You're not losing anything by putting the note on the plan by that very argument.
We are.
Could come in, and why couldn't you ask for a waiver from the note in the future if that were the case?
You can. It's a recorded note. You would have to come in and you would have to ask that plan be, and who knows if a board would do that. Someone should have the ability to come in and say, I want to ask for this waiver, and then it's in your hands whether you want to grant it or not. You putting this restriction is now causing a problem for my client because she wants to sell this property, and now there's a restriction on her property. Now there's a restriction on it. So she's going to have to tell anybody going forward, there's now a restriction on her property. If I could just finish, please.
Sure.
So I want to talk about your saldo, okay? Because you need to follow your saldo. And your saldo says, I'm going to direct your attention to 14612E. It's recording notations. The following notations are required to be cited on the record plan. Subsection 6, when the installation of curbs or sidewalks is waived for a particular development plan, you have to put this on your plan, quote, curbs and/or sidewalks may be required to be installed by subsequent landowners at their expense by direction of the Board of Commissioners. My client absolutely will put that note on the plan. That's what's required in your saldo. Your saldo says that that is a requirement. We have to put that on our plan, and we will agree to put that on your plan.
Beg to differ. The requirement is that you install sidewalks and curbing. That's what the requirement of the saldo is. So, I mean, you're putting the rabbit in the hat with that.
No. It says when the installation of curbs or sidewalks is waived, okay?
Yeah, so we can decide not to waive it. This is your asking for the waiver.
That's absolutely your choice. I think we have absolutely shown a hardship here, and it makes no sense to me that you are singling her out, because since 2016, and I went on your meeting minutes today, since 2016, there have been 5 lot line subdivision changes where somebody has asked for this waiver. They were all granted without restriction, and I'm going to give you the names.
In this area?
Yes, 2718 Moreland Road, 1580. If you would let me finish.
I didn't hear what you said. Moreland or More Done?
Moreland Road.
Okay, that's...
1580 Warner Road, 302 Holm Avenue, 1511 Susquehanna Road, 2823 Old Welsh Road. And 3 of the 5 of those were creating a buildable lot. One was creating 3 lots, and they didn't have to install sidewalks. We're not creating any lots here. All we want is just not to have that note put on the plan. Don't restrict her right to be able to sell this without that condition on her plan. It's just not fair. Nobody else was required. Since 2016, I didn't even go back further. I could have gone back further. And your saldo says that note, when you allow a waiver, your saldo says that it should say may. And you know why? Because they don't want to bind future boards. A future board should be able to look at this and determine whether they want to waive it or not. It should be their choice, not your choice. It should be whoever's going to hear the next subdivision plan, it should be their choice whether they want to grant the waiver or not. It's just not fair.
I think the issue is we don't want to grant the waiver for sidewalks anywhere in the township, notwithstanding what you may have shown with other properties. That sets no precedent. Each property is unique. I mean, anything doesn't change that for the next person that comes in line. It doesn't mean they're automatically ready for a waiver. And so it's within our discretion to do anything. We probably, as a board, I would surmise, don't want to grant it. We've offered the compromise position of the note. If that, isn't satisfactory, then we can deny the waiver request.
You certainly can deny the waiver request, and I think I've shown hardship here as a means, and the condition has to be reasonable. You have to put a reasonable condition. This condition's not reasonable. It's unfair. It's never been placed on any other subdivision in the history of this township. This is new. This has never been done before in this township. For some reason, we're being singled out here. My client's being singled out here. And it's even questionable whether this is even allowed.
I take exception to the argument that you're being singled out. This is a waiver request. Your client's requesting a special waiver for something. And again, we're offering this note. We don't have to, the note may be irrelevant because we may just deny it if you're not agreeable to the note. And I'm going to call on Commissioner Klein because he's here to.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. So just a little bit of background. So I think the applicant was in June, is that correct, or May? Was it May or June that you were in the committee?
We were
meetings?
not in last month.
So it was May?
It was, we were here last,
Commissioner
before
Klein,
you mean for the code
Commissioner
committee?
Klein, before you begin asking questions, can I ask the applicant's attorney, are you done with your presentation?
Well, I was going to cite one more section of your
Okay, why don't we let the applicant finish their presentation before we begin to ask the applicant's engineer, or the applicant's attorney any questions?
Okay.
So there's It's even questionable whether sidewalks are even required for this, because minor subdivision plans do not require a street plan. It's in your chart. They are not required. 146-9D2, Table 3, does not require a street plan. The street plan is where the detail is shown for a sidewalk installation. It's not required. It's not required. So I would even say that this isn't even a requirement of your ordinance when it comes to minor subdivisions. So that's another portion, but I don't think it's fair to have somebody install sidewalks when you might widen the road down, sometime in the future, and then they have to rip them out. I don't understand why you would want to do that. A sidewalk going nowhere.
Okay, thank you. So then I'll start with some just basic questions. Well, actually, let me start back with where I was going before. So after the June meeting, we met. I met with the applicant, with the manager and the solicitor's office. Lauren was present, and we had this very similar conversation. And so I just want to make sure that we did follow up from the June committee meetings, that we did have a meeting. We did have a meeting with the applicant. So my questions go first to the solicitor. The waivers is. How is it determined that a waiver is granted? Is it a hardship, or what's the criteria for a waiver to be granted? Because my understanding, a hardship has to deal with a zoning application.
No, hardship is now, there's a recent Commonwealth Court decision which has brought the concept of needing to prove an undue hardship into the area of a waiver request. Granting of waivers is within the discretion of the elected officials, and there are various factors that need to be proven in order for an applicant to be eligible for a waiver. And again, a recent Commonwealth Court decision has now raised the issue of needing to prove undue hardship.
Okay. And then in any of the things that the applicant's attorney talked about, is there anything in your concern about the minor subdivision not having a street plan that precludes us from dealing with the waiver request or even the requirement for sidewalks? I think is what the
granting of waivers is within the discretion of the elected officials.
But is this aspect, the sidewalks and curbing, is that a requirement even under a minor subdivision that doesn't require a street?
Under our saldo, it is you either have to do it or request a waiver. The applicant has requested a waiver from that section.
Okay. And the irregular lot shape, whereas it's unfortunate that it is an irregular lot shape, and I do agree with the lot line change because it does clean some things up for the homeowner, at least on Mill Road, but it also gives, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the lot line change does create the ample frontage on Dale Road to allow for the larger of the two properties to gain a future building lot. So I do want to make sure that that is pointed out. And as far as the irregular lot shape being not in accordance with the saldo, I don't know how old this house is, but it's got to be early 1900s. So from my standpoint, whatever happened back then for these subdivisions, and the house on Mill Road's got to be from the 50s or the 60s by the look of it. So I don't even recognize that as an argument. Not in the public interest was brought up. This is absolutely in the public interest. People walk Morden Road to get to the train station. It has been a source of comment and conversations. Recently, we put up stop signs at Morden and Mill Road to make the intersection safer for not only for people to walk, but people turning from and on of Morden and Mill Road. So we have had this on our radar screen. And I do believe that there are, as the exhibit shows in Exhibit 4, the sidewalks do turn onto Morden Road and would be basically a property and a third away if these sidewalks were put in. And I do want to point out, that the properties that the applicant's attorney discussed, the only one that is even close to this is the one on Warner Road. And if I remember correctly, that was a dead-end property on Warner Road. And no sidewalks from anywhere close to there come anywhere near Morden Road. With that being said, we had the conversation when we met with the applicant's attorney and the applicant, and we mentioned the fact that the board does have the ability to waive this and the choice, and we recognize, and especially myself, because initially I didn't want to have the waiver at all and require the sidewalks. But I realized that there is a minor subdivision, a minor lot line change, and my purpose in this is to not put the burden on future boards or not put the burden on the board at all going forward, because at some point I would like to see sidewalks on this road, and I want to make sure that going forward that this property and whoever was to take this property and potentially subdivide it to create a lot line knows that sidewalks are going to have to go in. With that, I strongly suggest that the applicant agree to the note. It is the least burdensome part of this. They get their lot line change, and there's no burden on them for selling the property. If somebody was buying this property for a building lot, whoever that developer is or whoever's building that is going to understand that they're going to have to put in sidewalks, and they'll know the cost, and because Mr. Rose has put that together, and they'll have their own costs. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the choice is you can accept the note, or I would request that the board support me in not granting the sidewalk waiver.
May I ask a question? So if, say, we rearrange the lot line so that it doesn't take into account Dale Road, and it doesn't give frontage on Dale Road, so it wouldn't create a buildable lot at all in the future, ever? Would you?
Are you going to deed restrict the property?
Mr. Klein,
No.
Commissioner Klein, I would not engage in hypotheticals with the applicant.
All right, well then.
It is, the only thing I would say.
No, I really wouldn't engage in hypotheticals with the applicant.
I'm not even going to engage in anything. If there's anything changing as far as the plan is concerned, if that's what you would like to propose or anything like that, then my suggestion would be that you pull the application for tonight and you make that change and submit that through the proper township, and that would come and we'll have a conversation with it at that time. But as the solicitor said, I'm not going to deal with hypotheticals.
I understand. And just to clarify one matter, because you did mention that we did have a staff meeting, and we did, because we tried to work this out. Right. And after that staff meeting, my client had suggested that maybe we put a cap on the amount of what it would cost, so that somebody moving forward, wouldn't have to worry that it's going to be, $100,000 or whatever it's going to be, and that they wouldn't have to install it. And that was rejected, is my understanding.
The only thing that I would potentially change in any of the motion would not have to do anything with a cap, because a cap is meaningful. I mean, I do general construction. I could go out and get a bid to say anything that would preclude me from having to do these waivers if we put a number on it. So that is meaningless to me. I will be willing to change the note. My main objective here is to get sidewalks on Morden Road. I'm not interested on Mill, and I'm not interested on Dale. That is not on here, but I am interested in getting sidewalks on Morden. That is a location where sidewalks are already currently existing. This would be a property and a third away, and I still am hopeful to get sidewalks continuing to the train station in some way, shape, or form, in whatever future it takes.
So you're saying you would limit the restriction to just Morden and not have it required on Dale? Is that what you're saying?
Again, Commissioner Klein, we should just stay with what's in front of us right now. And we shouldn't be negotiating with the applicant in this room. And she is correct. We had a meeting. That meeting was for the purpose of trying to settle this amicably, that we were unable to reach an amicable resolution to this. So those were settlement discussions. So please don't engage in hypotheticals and negotiations with the applicant at this time. They have two options. They can accept the plan as is, or they can risk it being denied, or three options, excuse me, or they can table this for tonight and continue to have discussions with the township.
And that's what I would suggest. Okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Ma'am, my client is here. She would like to make a comment, please.
No. Not at this moment. She's represented by counsel. You haven't called her as a witness. I asked you
Well,
if you
we're
were
not in a
concluded
hearing.
with your case. You indicated that you were concluded with your case. You haven't called her as a witness. If you want to break and have a discussion with township staff about what she wants to negotiate or discuss, that's fine. But Ms. Von Spreckelsen, you have brought a court reporter here this evening. You have made it very clear that if the township doesn't give you exactly what you want, that you are going to take us to the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas. That is why I was very specific. Have you concluded your case? You said you had. You didn't call her as a witness. So now she cannot get up and just make a statement.
Just because I have a court reporter here does not mean that I'm going to take you to the Court of Common Pleas. Number one, Mr. Clark. Number two, this is not a formal hearing.
Okay.
This is a meeting. And my
Understood.
client has due process rights that you are now trampling on.
No, we're not trampling on anyone's due process
She has
rights.
the absolute right to speak on
She has-
behalf of
she
her
has counsel.
application. This
She
is not
has
a
counsel.
hearing.
Please. Thank you. One at a time, please. Who had the floor? Counsel?
My recommendation, she has counsel. She's closed her case.
There's no closing of a case.
You've
This is
clo-
not a
you've-
court
you've
hearing.
closed your presentation.
This is not a hearing. This is not a hearing, okay? We were having a discussion and a meaningful dialogue.
But I
at
think,
that.
with all due respect, I think I probably went too far, as the solicitor said. I would suggest that you discuss or you think about the three options that are in front of you. One is to accept the application without the waiver. One is to accept the application with the note, or I should say, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for the entire board. I want to clarify that for the moment. That there's three options that I would like that are in front of us. One is the one that Commissioner Sanchez has already read, which has the note on it for future subdivision and lots to be created, that the sidewalks would go in. The second is to not want to do that, and we'll approve it with, or I would like to see it approved without the sidewalk waiver at all. Or the third is, if you want to have further discussions, then table it, and those meetings can be set up with township staff.
Then we would like to table it so that we can have further discussion.
I'm fine with that. It seems like Ms. Engineer Montgomery would,
We will need an extension of time.
That's fine.
you agree to waive the
Yes,
extension
the
request?
MPC
Okay.
requirement.
Thank you. Okay. Well then, I would make a motion that we table this application
At the request of the applicant.
at the request of the applicant and with their waiver of the applicable deadlines within the municipality's planning code or other Pennsylvania law or township statutes, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
We need to vote on it?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. I believe, Mr. President, we'll give a moment for the room to clear. I think the
Thank you.
court reporter's probably going to pack up,
Thank you,
unless he
sir.
wants to keep a transcript of the rest of the proceedings.
He's going to be with the applicant. They had a fire.
Somebody wants to develop it, they know they're going to put the sidewalks. There's no way anyone's going to waive that requirement before it's
I mean, that could be, I guess. Putting cold in here.
Mr. President, if you're willing, we
Proceed,
happy
sir.
to resume?
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have one item with a couple of subparts. This is ACL 3, a motion to approve the waiver of 2 permit fees for the Roslyn VFW. The first waiver is for the construction permit in the amount of $854. The second permit fee waiver is for on-site stormwater management and inspection fees that total $360, totaling a grand total of $1,214, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Myers and then Commissioner Klein. Anyone want to say? Okay.
After that.
Commissioner Myers first.
Thank you. I would like to speak to the part of the motion about Salem Baptist Church and give the board just a little background. Salem Baptist Church is a large church in the borough of Jenkintown. In December, they purchased the St. John of the Cross property on Woodland Road.
Excuse me, Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Sanchez, did you read these as one motion or two separate motions?
I was going to do it as two separate motions. I didn't want to interrupt your...
Okay, right.
Right. I feel like some of the issues may be interrelated too, but maybe for that part, it'd be best to wait.
So you're treating these as two separate motions?
Yes, indeed.
Okay,
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear.
Thank you.
So,
I was anxious.
All right, so now we're back to any questions on the first motion. Commissioner Schreiber?
I actually would like to speak to both of them at the same time, so I'm wondering when I do that.
I think now would be the appropriate time, of course.
Okay, so I will consider voting for both of these. We've never really clearly discussed how we're going to handle this issue moving forward, but we keep kind of bringing it up, and I really think we need to look at having a resolution that we will not waive fees for nonprofits, because both the Roslyn VFW and I guess Salem Baptist Church came in before we decided what we were actually going to do with this and put the resolution forward. It is still, I guess, on a case-by-case basis right now, so we can talk about these particular ones. But we keep bringing up what we're going to do in the future, and if we, say okay to one church, VFW, nonprofit, whatever it is, we have to continue to look at all of them and perhaps down the road approve something that might not be something that should be approved necessarily, and they would have a right to say, but you approved it before. And the manager can correct me on this, I believe in our ordinance we say that we are not going to waive fees. And if you want to word how that actually goes, you probably can word it better than I can, but.
There's been a lot of discussion regarding establishing a policy to not waive fees. And the point when commissioners have asked me, what does that mean, is it's really very simple. The ordinances prescribe certain fees for building permits, inspection fees, etc. So the policy is held in your ordinance and your law. That's what sets forth the fees, period. If you were to amend or allow for the waiver of fees with some criteria or guidance or guidelines, it would be to amend the ordinance to include that language in that. It wouldn't be a separate policy. If you want to establish a rule that said we will not consider at this point forward, after these two or prior to these, any fee waivers, that would be an instruction to me to not put on any agenda for you to consider on a case-by-case basis fee waivers. Because in order for you to change the fees or to waive the fees, each time you're passing a motion, you're amending your policy, i.e. your ordinance. And solicitor, again, I'm not practicing law, but just from a policy perspective. And what's typically done is you either have the ordinance or you establish fees, if not by ordinance, by resolution, and review them on an annual or biannual basis. And then you would build into those documents, when you establish the fee, under what conditions you would waive fees. Or, for example, the Vacant Property Review Board ordinance that you looked at last month, there was discussion about should we waive fees, not waive fees, and who has the ability to waive, the board or the manager. Now, in that document, in that ordinance, we did not put any guidelines or anything. You simply said that it either goes to the board or to the manager. And it's up to the discretion of either the board when it comes before you or the manager as to what the criteria were in that ordinance, period. So it's established by ordinance. So your policy is clear on if you can waive fees under the vacant property ordinance or not. So to the point is if you would take action on either separately or together, I think what Commissioner Schreiber is asking is that what I'm hearing from her is that she'd be willing to consider voting in favor of both of these, but she wants a further discussion to the topic that we just touched on. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say.
Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And, my understanding is when people are getting these permits, most of the time they're trying to fix up, something that they have already. The only thing that I could see, and I don't know how the solicitor might have to answer this, how this could be written in, is if there was something like a natural disaster, there's a tornado and the roof blows off, there's something like that of a nonprofit. I could see that is of no fault of their own. There's a fire, there's some horrific event that happens. But if they're using it to improve their property that they already, I would believe, have taxes lowered or no taxes maybe as nonprofits. To my way of thinking, the permit fees are kind of built into what they should be considering as their construction costs, and those permit fees should not be waived.
Okay, any other comments? Commissioner Klein.
Thank you, President Luker. We've discussed this, I think, the last time it was brought up. The idea of a policy getting put in place was waived, or was, I should say, tabled. That was at the time when we had the VFW and also the school district in front of us. I would maintain that I still have the same opinion that we should not be waiving fees for any nonprofits. The school district is a different entity, as we discussed when that agreement with the school district was passed by the board. I believe the board should go forward without waiving fees for nonprofits. Nonprofits are, in most cases, and I believe in both of these cases, are both property owners. They get property tax, they pay no property taxes. They still have township services, and I don't believe that the township should be waiving fees for these nonprofits. It's a slippery slope. One of these days, we're going to get somebody in here that's going to be looking for a waiver who's a nonprofit, and it's going to be undesirable, and we're not going to want to waive their fees, and I think that's going to be problematic for the township. We can all sit here and talk about the benefits and all the good work that either of these groups do, but at the same time, we run the slippery slope, and I believe that the township should not be waiving fees for nonprofits, period. Thank you.
Commissioner Bowman.
I agree with Commissioner Klein, especially in light of my comments last month with the school district and my thoughts that they are special as a tax entity, that they should get the waiver and nobody else. So I agree with that, and I'd support any resolution in the future to code that.
Thank you. Commissioner Zappone.
I think a waiver should be given. A real hardship case. A senior citizen, it's got to be a real hardship. But just to start granting waivers here and there, I just don't think we should be doing that. Okay, if it's a real hardship, it's a senior citizen that can't afford a permit fee to put up an 8-foot section of fence. Okay, she's 90 years old. She's living on a certain amount of income. That's a real hardship. And at that point, it should be granted to them. But just to be giving out waivers here and there, I don't go with that at all. And I guess from what I said last month with the school board, that was a $500,000 gift to them.
Commissioner DePlacido.
Thank you, Commissioner Zucker. I agree with many of the things that Commissioner Klein, Bowman, and Zappone said. My question is, it's actually directed at Director Montgomery. So in the requesting of a permit process, when the person comes to you and requests the permit, is there a discussion of like adequate vendors, or do you provide a list of suitable contractors, suitable electricians, or anything like that? Or this is like kind of a two or maybe even a three-part question, but do you review the request or the permit request to see what vendors they're using for these modifications to their houses, to see if they're reputable, see if they've done work in the township before, things like that?
To answer your first question, we do not recommend vendors or contractors.
Excuse me, Amy, could you make sure that light's on?
It is, yeah, I don't know why it's not.
That's all right.
It is on.
Yep.
Okay. We do not recommend contractors or any other vendors. And to answer your second question, we do require contractor certifications. They have to be registered with us.
All right, thanks. So what I worry about is, those who are granted these waivers on the smaller scale, not so much the school district. I'm pretty sure they're going to use some of the finest contractors and electricians and plumbers in the business. But, that person that wants to put up that 8-foot fence, and they get a really, really good deal. But this business hasn't done very well in Philadelphia, has many complaints, is not on Angie's list or anything like that. They get to put up that fence, and they do a terrible job in the township. So again, I agree with my 3 colleagues over here, and agree not to waive any more permit fees for any institution.
Okay. Okay, any other comments, Commissioner?
Now,
Zappone?
that's after the 2 that we have in front of us now, right? For the church and the veterans. This goes, if there's a vote that comes, it'll go in after this. Am I right?
I'm hearing 2 things. I'm hearing discussions that say, and anyone can correct me if I'm not hearing it correctly, that the members speaking are in favor of waiving. There's still a motion on the floor, by the way, on the one item.
Yeah, first one.
And then the second item, I haven't heard anyone say they object to waiving these 2 fees. The discussion seems to be to Commissioner Schreiber's point of, in the future, we will not waive fees. And the point I'm trying to make is, the administration has no authority, rule of law under the ordinance, to waive fees. So your policy is not only a policy, it's a rule of law. There is no authority. So when I say you're creating a rule, the rule would be, if you pass the motion after you considered these 2, to say, we will not consider any additional fee waivers, you would not see it on your agenda, thereby no longer considering individual fee waivers. If you wanted to establish criteria in the future, for example, what you were saying is under these circumstances, we would apply these criteria and waive a fee, it would have to be housed in either the ordinance or the resolution establishing it, which would be at a public meeting. But you would not get individual requests on a monthly basis by individual groups to waive any fees if you did those 2 things. 2 motions, and then discuss a third motion to instruct the manager to establish a rule where you will not consider any additional waivers of fees.
So we wouldn't even need to make a resolution, is what you're saying?
No, because you already have, the point is, we have no authority to waive fees, meaning the administration processes these. Therefore, you do not need to establish another policy. Your policy would be the rule that you will not consider them, therefore I would not put them on the agenda.
Commissioner Klein.
Yeah, I mean, just to clear something up, I'm actually opposed to waiving these fees also, not future. I just want to make that clear. In our agenda, we had the costs of the fees for the Roslyn VFW. Is there a cost for the, I mean, I know it's coming up soon, maybe I'll wait until that motion's read, but the Salem Baptist Church waiver.
We do not have the total costs because this is coming in, my understanding is it's coming in phases. And because we don't have the second phase, we couldn't give you a total cost.
Okay. Well, once again, I want to clarify. My objection is for these and future, not going forward.
Before I go back to you, Commissioner Sanchez, Commissioner Hecker, you had a question?
Yeah, so these are the only 2 applications in front of us at present regarding nonprofits requesting waiver fees. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So what I've heard in the discussion, I mean, what I would do and what I'm inclined to put forward, I think we should grandfather these 2 in. And then I think we should direct the manager to not accept any requests for waivers until the board decides upon the criteria by which you want to establish review for hardship in terms of what Commissioner Zappone is saying. But they're getting caught up in an important discussion, and I think I would let these go forward tonight.
Okay. Commissioner Gillespie?
Well, I'm curious, though, with the church, I mean, what is that number going to be?
Once we can verify what the phases are, we can calculate them.
They don't know yet.
It won't be $500,000.
Do we have a
Yeah, but I don't
range
pay
or
taxes.
anything?
Yeah, no range.
President, I have a ballpark figure,
That is
63,000,
62,
63.
63,000 estimated
Thousand?
ballpark figure.
Which I hesitate to give that figure without what I wanted to say. This conversation has turned around a little bit, and I wanted to substantiate that, and why that we should grant that waiver. But the discussion has become a policy discussion instead of the two motions on the agenda.
Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I would differ with that. I don't think it's, it evolved into a policy decision, but, the conversation is around whether these nonprofits or any nonprofits going forward. Just one question, $63,000 is the permit fee or the construction cost?
Now, to my understanding, the
ballpark
ballpark permit fees that I received from the code office.
Okay.
And I say ballpark because
No,
not
I
all
got
of
you.
the
I just wanted to make sure we were
applications
talking about permit fees and not cost of construction.
No, construction's going to be,
Yeah, I got it. I just wanted to make sure.
All fees, permit, inspection, all fees.
Right.
So going back to the beginning, I think Township Manager Manfredi stated there is a motion on the floor for one half of the motion.
For one half of the motion, and I don't want to muddy the waters, if it makes it easier, I would
Read the other one.
withdraw that motion. We can talk about the larger policy, the direction to Manager Manfredi to draw up as summarized by Commissioner Hecker, and then I can make the motion for the two at a time, and we can consider them.
If you want to,
So President Luker, if Commissioner Sanchez wanted to withdraw the motion and Commissioner Gillespie wanted to second and agree to the withdrawal, you would start over again.
okay. Back to you, sir.
Okay, yes, I would withdraw the motion.
Okay. So the first motion's been withdrawn, and back to you, Commissioner Sanchez.
I would look to, he articulated it well, so Commissioner Hecker, did you want to make a motion for the policy, or Commissioner Schreiber, that we no longer waive fees and...
What I heard, do you want to do it?
Go
or
ahead.
want me to?
Go ahead.
What I heard Commissioner Hecker say, and please correct me, is that, but that was prior, there was some additional discussion, but I heard him say to waive the fees for these two agenda items, and then to instruct the manager to not initiate any additional fee waiver requests until such time as the commissioners establish additional rules or guidelines for the waiver of fees along the lines of what Commissioner Zapone had recommended, that kind of guidance.
Correct.
What he said.
Okay, no, I've had a question, I'm sorry.
Before we get a second,
Before we get a second.
Is that a motion?
Well, I would put that forward, yes.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
So if
I'm just stating what I heard him say. That's,
So if
what's
we
that?
put them together, and then we have to either accept both or neither, is that correct?
It's actually a three-part motion.
It's a three-part
Sounds
motion.
like to me.
4 parts, actually. You would approve each of the two.
All right.
You would instruct the manager, and then to do 2 things: not bring forth any fee waivers in the future to the agenda, and to, at some point in time in the future, if you're going to consider fee waivers in the future, work on criteria that gets built into the legislation, ordinance, or resolution to do so. That's what I've heard.
I just don't know how we can vote on something when there's no number here. I can't vote
We don't.
for something without a number.
We don't have
I hear what
an
you're
exact
saying.
number. I'm agreeing with you. We do not have an exact number. I believe the number that Commissioner Myers received that from an estimate from what they have seen in the code department. It is not precise, but it is accurate.
But it's up there.
It is up there.
Counselor, you were going to say something?
I think the better way to proceed is to vote on the VFW, make a motion and a second on the VFW, make a motion and a second on Salem Baptist Church. And then if somebody wants to make a motion from the floor instructing the manager to not bring any more of these fee requests forward until a policy is drafted, that could be your third motion.
So treat them as two individual motions.
I think that's what I'm hearing, is that there seems to be, it may get a little cumbersome if, for instance, Commissioner Gillespie wants to vote in favor on the VFW but opposed to the second. I'm saying that it needs to be two separate motions.
You're right.
And to this point, what I heard Commissioner Gillespie say is that she wasn't comfortable voting on this without the exact number. We could do with VFW what you've done, or we could do with Salem Baptist what we did with VFW. You could put that, you can move that to next month. We can get you a precise number, and then you could reconsider it. And then you can also pass a motion that if it is moved, seconded, and passed on the VFW, you can move second and take action on the Salem Baptist Church. You could still then also offer from the dais, a member can offer a motion to the other, to instructing the manager to not bring forth any additional waivers. And then you would have next month the Salem Baptist Church for consideration. And then that would be the last, consideration for a waiver of fees, period.
Gotcha. Commissioner Zepone.
As far as the figure that Commissioner Myers gave, I know in fact that parish is falling apart. Those buildings are falling apart. So it doesn't surprise me of the amount of work that's going to be done there to bring that building up to code. I've been to St. John's many times, so I kind of expect that number to be that high. Those buildings, all of those buildings are in real disarray.
Okay. I think we've had, okay, Commissioner Vahey.
Is anyone here to speak on behalf of the applicants?
No. I'm sorry.
The applicants, or anybody here to speak on behalf of the applicants for the fee waivers?
No.
Okay.
Well, in that case, Mr. President, I will reset the clock and make a motion to approve the waiver of 2 permit fees for the Roslyn VFW. The first waiver is for the construction permit in the amount of $854. The second permit fee waiver is for the on-site stormwater management and inspection fees that totals $360. The grand total, $1,214, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners? From staff? From the audience?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So it does appear, I don't know what the numbers are and how the vote finally would go, but it does appear that I'm hearing things that I really like to hear, that waivers should not happen because everybody should be treated equally. And if we have people who need help, even people in dire help, we have so many ways to help them, but it's not by taxing people and giving people the tax money, using it that way. So I am really heartened to hear the kind of discussion that I heard. But given that, we have kind of decided that, if I'm right, the end result might be that we are deciding against waivers for the very reasons I think that I'm saying, and perhaps you have others. So because of that, I would like you to say no to this waiver. I would like you to start now, recognize that those things exist, that it's not a good idea to waiver things. It is a slippery slope. People don't get treated fairly. Again, you have probably 3 or 4 different websites of people seeking to help people out there. So engage those. You used to have an organization of your own, the Helping Hands, and that's another way that you can help people. So admirable that we have so many that want to help, and so it's not necessary to tax people and do it that way. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Are we voting on both at the same time?
We're voting only on the VFW.
We have one motion and one second for the first item. Okay? Are we ready to vote? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Myers?
Yes.
Commissioner Brodsky?
Yes.
Commissioner Rothman?
Yes.
Commissioner DiPlacido?
No.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schreiber?
Yes.
Commissioner Hecker?
Yes.
Commissioner Beatty?
No.
Commissioner Gillespie?
I voted no. I love the VFW, but I have to be fair to both.
No.
I voted no.
Commissioner Saccone?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowman?
Yes.
Commissioner Klein?
No.
Commissioner Luker?
Yes.
10 in favor.
So the motion passes. Commissioner Sanchez?
Thank you, Mr. President. Next, we have a motion to approve the waiver of permit fees for the Salem Baptist Church, including the construction permit, on-site stormwater management, and inspection fees, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, so we don't have the same thing twice. Let's go to roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Myers?
Hold on.
There's comment.
Still got to leave comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Okay. Any comments from commissioners?
It's got to go back to Ben, doesn't it?
Well, I think Commissioner Myers.
Commissioner Myers.
Okay, I'm going to try to start where I left off, that Salem Baptist Church has purchased the St. John's property. For those that are not familiar with the property, it is a large property consisting of the church, the chapel, a large school, the convent, and a rectory, as well as athletic fields. And I certainly have heard the arguments. This church from Jenkintown Borough grew out of its venue, and that is why it purchased St. John's. This church will bring approximately, their membership is 1,200 members. That will be 1,200 members coming into Abington Township, specifically Roslyn, and they're not going to come here and just go to church. So we're bringing in revenue through consumers. We're helping our businesses. Certainly the businesses in Roslyn could use this leg up. And I know that the $63,000 sounds like a lot, but some of what they're doing is they are completely renovating the existing church, constructing an addition to include an entry lobby, an elevator machine room, existing roof to be repaired, and that's just in the church alone. The school will be getting almost gutted, new floors, new ceilings, new windows, air conditioning where there was none. There is a full-size gymnasium, which will also be renovated and be getting air conditioning. The school right now houses a nonprofit autistic school by the name of Nexus, and also other community organizations, athletic organizations, will also be using this space. The church wants to be much more than a church. It wants to be a community center. And they've already started doing that, and they haven't completely occupied the property. They have not started to have services there yet. Commissioner Klein said that they do use our services. That is absolutely correct, but they're going to be providing many services. And it's for that reason that I ask you for your vote to waive these permit fees so that this church can move forward and do what it wants to do in its entirety to help the community, the Township of Abington, and specifically the community of Roslyn.
Okay, any other comments? Commissioner Schreiber.
So do we have figures other than not on here. Do we have figures other than the permit fees? Do we have what they're doing, the construction costs, any of that, what the different permit fees are yet?
I can only read to you what I have, and I'm sure that it's incomplete. An addition at approximately $18,000, HVAC appliance, plumbing, electrical, another alteration. I'm sure this is a separate building. HVAC, plumbing, electrical again, another alteration, and again the same, the plumbing, the electrical. They're doing all of the buildings. Their plan, I understand, and this could change, to use the convent as a senior center. Obviously, the church will be the church, and the school will be used not only for their activities, but also for community organizations, and naturally, the autistic school that resides there now.
And I don't know how to ask this, but are they funding that, all those things, do you know? Like, do they have a capital campaign to fund this, or do they have grant money to fund this, or?
I did not hear of any grants. They are funding this. Now, whether they're doing that in the form of loans, I would suspect that they are.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Commissioner Vahey.
I just want to explain why I will be voting differently for the church. I will be supporting this. For me, I mean, we're in the discretionary zone of like deciding when and when not to approve permit fees. I mean, that's a terrible position to be in. I'd rather it just be uniform. And I think it actually is by our ordinance. But nonetheless, someone actually spoke in favor of the church. No one that was out here speaking in favor of the VFW. If you want a fee waiver and if we're going to be discretionary, you should be here. Tell me why I should be voting for it. Someone here did. I'd prefer to be a member of the congregation. I'm assuming Commissioner Myers is not, but she made a really good case, and therefore I'll be voting in favor.
Thank you, sir.
I failed to mention that that from what I could see on the history, that this church was built in 1953. And speaking to what Commissioner Zappone said, I don't think there have been many renovations since 1953.
Commissioner Bowman.
I support the waiver. I attended that school, and what Commissioner Myers says is accurate. And if they're going to invest in that building, I'm all for that. But they're getting in under the wire, in my opinion, because I will support a ban on these in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Comments, Commissioner Vice President Klein.
Yeah, I think it's also important to say in the whole presentation, first of all, I would like to know why the actual somebody representing the church was not here to discuss this, but it should also be said the church is selling their property in Jenkintown and receiving funds from that. Once again, this is a slippery slope. Somebody's going to come to us looking for a waiver that is undesirable. I realize all the good things that just think keeping St. John's from being anything but what an institutional use like it is a huge benefit to the neighborhood. But somebody's going to come to us with a waiver request that is not not necessarily desirable, and that's a nonprofit. And I think it's a slippery slope, and I think we continue to open up the door even if we go forward with a policy in the future. So once again, I'll be voting against this.
Okay, Commissioner Myers, this will be the last comment.
Forgive me. I failed to mention that Pastor Marshall Mitchell had every intention of being here tonight. At the last minute, he was unable to attend. He did send his testimony, his statement. I would be happy to read it. It's beautiful. If you'd like me to read it, as if these are his words, not mine, I would be happy to do that.
Before, Council, does that have any weight? Okay, go ahead. Is this brief?
I'll try. It is a minister. Salem endeavors to build and rebuild a human capital hub for the entirety of Abington. We are not new to Abington, as our mission simply continues the rich legacy for education and human capital development started decades ago by St. John of the Cross. With partners like PAL, the Nexus School, and an independent daycare that serves wealthy and aspirational alike, Salem will be woven into the fabric of the community without eye toward race, religion, or orientation. This will literally be this community's church. Salem's fields will be a home for little kids who dream of football victories, its school a haven for budding scientists who attend Saturday evening astronomy academies available to the community, and a perpetual something for learning and stretching one's imagination. Salem has made and is making enormous capital investments in its buildings and grounds for the enjoyment of this community. Millions of dollars are being invested to intentionally make this more than just a church. Salem is building up a place for young and old, people from all walks and persuasions to live, learn, exercise, and worship in freedom. Salem's first event at its campus was a community-wide Easter egg hunt. Over 250 children from the surrounding community enjoyed food, egg decorating, pictures with police officers, and way too much chocolate. This was just the first event. It was free and open to all sounds a clarion call that this shall be the tenure of Salem in this community. There is more, but I think that sums it up.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner DePlacido.
Thank you, President Luker. Salem Baptist Church is a wonderful church. I know many of the congregants. I've been there many times myself, but my vote is not against the church. My vote is for the policy that we still need to discuss. My vote is a no vote because there are no numbers listed here. My vote is for setting a precedent. So again, I love this church. I wish it well. I can't wait till they set up shop in town. But at this time, I will vote no as well.
Okay, any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Sharper.
Keep turning this off. We had talked about tabling this one until we did get the numbers. Are we going to do that, or?
There's a motion and a second on the floor. A motion to table is always in order, but there's a motion and a table on the floor, so there's not a motion to table currently in front of you.
You would have to.
So I can make it. So I can make a motion, or do we have to vote on that first?
You have a motion and a second on the floor, so the mover and the second would have to remove again, just like you did before, and take on a new motion.
Respectfully, Manager Manfredi, I disagree. A motion to table is always in order. It is always appropriate to make a motion to table because if the majority of the board wants to table, it should not be thwarted by a minority who made a motion and a second and refuses to accept the motion to table. So if 12 of you want to table and the motion and the person who made the motion and the person who made the second don't, you would be able to thwart the will of the other 12 by simply not accepting the motion to table. So a motion to table is always in order and is always appropriate.
Because I think that there are people, myself included, I said that I would consider this one because it is before we have made our final, before we had this discussion. Now that we've had this discussion, I would like to know what those numbers are to possibly vote for this, but I don't feel like I can vote for it without those numbers in place. So I would like to make a motion to table this.
So if I hear that correctly, if I heard what the council said correctly, it goes back to the person who made the initial motion and the second would have to be
We have a motion and a second to table, and
you got to vote on that.
Was there a second to your motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
There's no comment on a motion to table, so you just call the vote to table.
Okay, call the vote to table.
There's a motion to table on the floor, it has been seconded, and you call the vote to table.
Okay. So,
All those in favor, say
Call the
call the
vote.
vote? Okay.
No.
No discussion from the witness. Roll call vote, be appropriate?
Commissioner Myers?
No.
Commissioner Brodsky?
This is on the motion to table?
The table, right.
Yes.
Commissioner Rothman?
Yes.
Commissioner DePlacido?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
No.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schreiber?
yes.
Commissioner Hepburn?
Yes.
Commissioner Beatty?
Yes.
Commissioner Gillespie?
Yes.
Commissioner Zappone?
No.
Commissioner Bowman?
No.
Commissioner Klein?
No.
Commissioner Luker?
No.
8-7. Oh, wait, somebody's missing.
Yeah, you're missing one.
7-7.
It's tied.
So it's tabled.
So what is that, 8 to 7?
8 to 6.
8 to 6, so the
Table.
motion is to table? Okay. All right.
So,
Should we make a motion from the
floor.
Okay, so now we go.
Just move on to the agenda.
So the question is whether we want to consider a motion from the floor for the third part of the discussion about directing the manager to put a halt on all waiver requests while the board discusses whether there should be additional criteria around that.
Right, well, I'll make that motion with only one caveat, because now we've tabled Salem Baptist Church. Even though I'm opposed to it, it should still be given consideration because we have been discussing it. So I would make the motion that Commissioner Hecker's talking about, that no further waivers should be considered until a policy is passed by the board for the exception of the unfinished business of the Salem Baptist Church waiver. And I so move.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Okay.
Mr. President, that concludes the unfinished business of the Administrative Code and Land Use Committee.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. This time, I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Tom Hecker, Chair of the Public Works Committee.
Thank you, President Luker. The Public Works Committee has two items of new business this evening. The first is PW 01-07-1218. This is a motion to execute resolution number 18-029 to ratify the submission, approve, and support the filing of the intermunicipal grant application for the upgrade of the traffic signal at Township Line Road and Washington Lane, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from commissioners? Commissioner Vahey?
How was this intersection selected for the grant application?
This started with Cheltenham Township, and there's 3 municipalities, and we were asked to participate in it. It's shared 3 ways. This is just for the grant application for our one share, and it'll come back to us later if awarded. It was selected by Cheltenham and PennDOT and Jenkintown, and they asked us to participate.
So we're applying for a grant only for our share of the total cost of the intersection upgrade?
Well, we agreed to 1/3 of the application piece of it, or we are not going to agree to paying anything more than our share, which would be half of a half. 2/3, right?
25%. We have 1
25%.
corner out of the 4.
Right.
So Mike, just to make sure I'm clear, we're applying for a grant of $350,000. If our 25% share of this intersection upgrade is less than $350,000, we're only going to get a grant for that much?
We have no match, correct?
Right now, with the Arley grant, I hope this is working. With the Arley grant, there actually is no match requirement, so there would be no match requirement on our part. However, because the grants are so competitive, we're not sure if we would actually get the Arley grant, so we would reuse the work that's being done right now for this application for future applications as well, and they may have some grant component or some match components. So we're going to try for the Arley and see what happens, see if we can get it.
In a different way, we have red light cameras, the others do not.
That's what I'm getting at.
The fact that we have the red light cameras will strengthen this application for that intersection, which benefits, even though least, frankly, it will strengthen that application. And the application, as the director mentioned, can still be used with others if we don't get this. We are asked to support it. Since it does benefit us in some way, we supported it since the cost was only the $1,000.
Could Cheltenham apply for a grant through the Arley program without us?
They can apply. This is Green Light Go grant, though. This piece of it.
This was Arley.
I thought it was Green Light Go.
Oh, this was Arley. The next item is Green Light Go, I believe. This one was Arley.
Yeah, the next one is.
This is Arley as well.
You're correct. Second phase is green light.
I don't want to become a nitpicker, although I am tonight. I'm just, we're participating in this program. We benefit from the proceeds of this program. And it sounds like about to share the proceeds with the program with other municipalities that don't participate in the program. I grew up in Cheltenham. I'm not anti-Cheltenham. I'm just where there may be other intersections where this grant money may be better spent. I'm just not sure why we're spending it at a shared intersection.
Very simply, when I was approached, and this was roughly 2 weeks ago, it was a simple matter of $1,000 we get to improve the intersection with no cost to us. And it was really that simple thinking that by supporting this, we can make an improvement, even though we only have a small share of it, it would still be made. Can't argue with your point. I mean, it is clearly benefiting and may clearly benefit from our program. It's a valid point.
And would the $350 pay for the entire upgrade of the intersection?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners? Any comments from the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, the motion passes.
Thank you. PW2 is a motion to adopt resolution number 18-028, authorizing the township manager to sign and submit all traffic signal approval applications pertaining to the 2015 Greenlight Go grant traffic signal LED upgrades, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from commissioners? Staff? Commissioner?
Just did have one question, and I brought it up to Commissioner Sanchez and Manager Manfredi. Today they announced the 2018 grant awards for the Greenlight Go, and the township did receive, I think it was in excess of $400,000 in the Greenlight Go program for Greenwood and Washington Lane, was it?
That's right.
And the main reason to bring that up is because now that the Greenlight Go grants have been awarded, the county transportation grant program will now start its process. The committee, which I will be serving on, was waiting for this, and I would strongly suggest that money is allocated towards municipalities that have already received Greenlight Go in order to help with the match and the match funding. So I would strongly suggest that the township would go ahead and get that grant application into the county.
I saw your email before this meeting, and we'll certainly do that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from commissioners? There are none. Comments from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, President Luker. That concludes the business of the Public Works Committee this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Hecker. Commissioner Schreiber, Chair of the Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Luker. Before we start on our formal agenda, I'd like to call on Chief Pat Malloy to give a report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just a brief report. We've had an uptick, in case you didn't notice, on fireworks calls for service since the 4th of July, and that was a result of the change in law. Especially, it seems like in the Southwest, Glenside, Ardsley, North Hills, and we were corresponding with the commissioners and residents alike, and we put our heads together, and we were able to put a public service announcement out saying we were sort of going to change our response to a zero tolerance after we put a warning notice out. So we are tracking our calls for service where we go out to these residents, especially when it's 10 o'clock at night. We're trying to be reasonable as we've been in the past. It's rare in my 25-year career that we have ever cited anybody for fireworks, but with the change of law, I think the sales of fireworks have gone up 60%. But the reaction on social media to this plan has been positive. The officers are going out. It is difficult sometimes to identify who is setting these off, but we're going to do our best to cite people when we can. The only other thing that I want to talk about this evening, because I know it's a long evening, the manager and I and others in community policing and Melissa Gargan, we put together this no solicitation notice. We used to have those small clings that were available if you were to come into the station. Now we have this on the website. where it's a PDF, your residents can print it, or if they were to come into the station, they could just get this yellow copy. Obviously, if you print it, it would probably look more like this. Nonetheless, it would be a service to your constituents if they were to select this. We also would ask, it is a quality of life issue, that if your residents do sign up for this, that they go on our website, register to the Do Not Solicit list, which will be retained in our records division. So when people come in for their permits, they will be given an updated list, an ongoing list of the homes where they're not allowed to solicit.
And just to piggyback on that, and just to be clear, everything else is the same as the police department has always done, their enforcement. The only real difference is this is something that people can put into their window or somewhere so that it's much more visible rather than a little sticker. So everything else would still apply.
Can they still get the sticker?
They can have both.
I don't see that in my window, thank you.
The really lower profile, the stickers, and people, some people prefer those, but now you have options.
Chief, solicitors have to register with the township before knocking on doors, correct?
That is correct.
Can residents get a list of those registered solicitors?
That is posted on the website also. I don't know if it's on the township side, but I believe our police department side. We may have shared it too. Commissioner Hecker's nodding yes. But we do keep a list of that, and we do post that, make it available to residents.
Thank you.
Should a solicitor knock on their door, who would a resident call?
911 for immediate police response. We would identify them and be able to either cite them or warn them given whatever the circumstances are.
Thank you.
Anything else, Chief?
That's all I have. I know you wanted to mention maybe the
I was going to
food
wait
drive.
for my comments to the end, but I can mention it now. On Saturday, there is a first responders are going to be doing a food drive at from 9 a.m. to 12 noon at the Giant in both Roslyn and in Huntington Valley. So I think that's what you were referring to, right? Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you for the reminder. And so that food drive will be at both of those if anybody wants to participate and bring some food in to help the various food cupboards throughout the township. Thank you. And now we'll continue with our agenda. PS 01 is motion to adopt ordinance number 2157, amending Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, Section 14, Stop Intersections, and Article 3, Parking Regulations at Sections 25, Parking Prohibited at all times, no parking between signs, no parking here to corner, and 28, Special Purpose Parking Zones, to add stop intersections on King Road, Garden Road, and Wesley Avenue, add no parking here to corner signs on Keswick Avenue, repeal no parking here to corner signs on Fairhill Avenue, add special purpose parking restrictions on Rockwell Road, and repeal special purpose parking restrictions on Arlington Avenue as set forth in the ordinance, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from commissioners, staff, residents? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
And that concludes our agenda this evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Shriver. At this time, Commissioner Tom Bowman, Vice Chair of the Public Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public Affairs has one item, and that is PA 01, motion to adopt resolution number 18-027, Board of Commissioners of the Township of Abington, Montgomery County, approving the fiscal year 2018 annual action plan for the use of federal CDBG funds, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Vahey.
Mr. Schroeder, can I ask you questions about this?
Yes, sir.
All right. How are these programs selected for funding?
The township, following federal regulations, prepares a 5-year plan, consolidated plan, in which we solicit public comment, citizen participation, and talk to other service providers to understand the needs for the low to moderate income population in the Abington Township area. That 5-year plan is completed, and within that 5-year plan, every year after that, the Township of Abington receives an allocation, and then
we respond to that 5-year plan with the citizen participation to do an action plan every year, and that's what's in front of you. So this action plan is consistent with the 5-year consolidated plan. The consolidated plan is more in general terms, big picture kind of issues, talking about housing, infrastructure, but your annual action plan is project specific. So with a project specific, with our projects, it's been 2 categories historically that the township over the past 20 to 25 years has addressed, and that has been public improvements with streets, curbing and sidewalks, the curbing with stormwater management where there's been flooding issues that we have addressed. The other big category is housing. We have programs for the owner-occupied program for property owners that are income qualified. The township will come in and assist in repairs. The other category is rental housing. Over the past 20 years, the township has provided support to local housing providers for rental housing for Abington residents.
So these specific projects, well, let me clarify. 2200 block of Parkview Avenue, is that for sidewalks?
Oh, that's just curbing.
Just curbing? Same for Old Welsh?
Old Welsh is curbing and sidewalks.
Okay. Does that need to be clarified on this budget?
Yes.
Okay. But those, so putting aside owner-occupied, the curbing, sidewalk repairs, the chairlift, those weren't specifically listed on the 5-year plan?
No.
Then how were those 3 projects selected for this budget?
What the Community Development Department has done in the past to work in conjunction with the Engineering Department. The Engineering Department has a master list of a lot of public improvement that need to be done, and the Community Development Department has worked with the Engineering Department to say that some of the projects that they have identified in the long term was eligible for CDBG funding. So we were able to remove that from their list and taking it from the burden of bond financing and other kind of financing, and and it is an eligible CDBG project. So over the past 20, 25 years, for those projects that the Department of Engineering, the Township Department of Engineering has identified, we were able to select a list, and we have, over decades, have done a lot of improvements for street improvements that are in income eligible areas.
Is the entire township eligible for this funding, or is it certain sections?
Certain sections.
Okay. When does this budget need to be submitted to HUD to get our funding approved?
The deadline is August 15th.
Okay, so we do have another board meeting before that time?
Correct.
My general concern, I mean, these all might be fine projects. I mean, I have no idea where these numbers come from, especially for the sidewalk and curbing. $280,000 for 1 block of sidewalk and curbing seems a bit high to me, but I'm not an expert, I don't know. But overall, I mean, I think these are policy decisions best left to the board. I mean, they're well-intentioned, no doubt. But, you know, I like to know why we shouldn't be putting all our money in owner-occupied rehabilitation program. I know we have a very long wait for that. So I don't want to just rubber stamp something that's come before me a week before for consideration. I don't really know what these projects are for. I haven't heard a commissioner ask me to support it. Whether this is approved tonight or not, I just think the board needs to have greater input in how this budget is created, especially if we're an entitlement community and we're going to get this funds every year. I think this needs to be more deliberative process, and the policy needs to be set from the 15 of us.
Commissioner, there is a process, and it's a 3-month process where there is a public notification of the announcement of the award, and that's done in the month of May, where it's publicly advertised that we're soliciting comments for the use of the funds. That runs for a 30-day period. There's a comment period, and are given clear direction to contact the township, contact me with my telephone number. That's published in the paper. After that, if there are no comments, then the township puts forward a suggested budget, which that's another 30-day period to receive comments on the proposed budget. At the end of that 30-day period, the comment period has been closed, and then we bring that before the board. The federal government goes above and beyond to make sure that there is public comment and opportunity to reach out. There's access for disability to come in to the township, so there's almost like a 60-day period to comment on this, on the use of the funds.
No, I get that, and I saw your advertisement. It was in our packet this week, but this week's the first time I saw this. And it's very, very easy to communicate with the 15 of us, and I think while we comply with the law, comply with regulation in the advertisement, I want to have greater input in this, and this is the first, Sunday was the first time I saw it.
We'll work to improve that, to reach out much sooner.
Thank you.
How many comments did you receive during the comment period?
None.
None. And how did you arrive at the numbers on the budget? Because I share Commissioner Vahey's concern with the budget. A lot of these numbers are pretty general. The administration line item is 20% of the total funds,
Yes.
which I don't really understand.
Yes.
It would be great to see a more broken down budget. I really don't know what that $150,000 is going to. And then the other thing that I see on here is, owner-occupied rehabilitation program is $183,501, which sounds very specific to me compared to all the other numbers on here. But I don't have a breakdown to really understand what the logic is behind that number.
Well, the way the budget is derived is once the allocation is made, then 20% is set aside for administration. And administration is to pay for staff, advertising time, and every other action to administer the program.
But is that mandated? Is 20% mandated? Do we actually spend 20%? Or is that just a number that we throw out there?
20% is a cap that the federal government allows. And we generally work within that budget. But then from there, once we take 20% and set that aside, then it's divided up on the projects. But also there is a underwriting for the projects where we look at projects that are doable and that can be completed within a 12 to 18-month process. So there is an analysis to make sure that you have a feasible project, a doable project. And relative to the dollar amount, you need to, what the numbers that you see for the public improvements is not what is said, what it's going to cost. We just allocate enough money to hopefully cover it so that when the bids coming in, there's monies in that. We do talk to the engineering department with their vast experience and many years of doing that. They give my department what is an anticipated cost and what the budget in front of you. I just make sure that there's enough money to cover it. What's in there does not state that's not what it's going to cost, but I have to allocate enough money to fund it so that when the bids come in, there's enough to fund the project.
But what if there's not enough to fund the bids?
Commissioner,
What we,
hold on, let me just let Township Manager Manfredi comment on your comments. Go ahead, sir.
My comments would be more generic. I hear what the commissioner is asking for. I think going forward, each year hereafter, it is very easy to accommodate that and put additional time into the process so that you can have what he's asking for. I think we also have a meeting next month that Mr. Strother should be able to get the additional information that he's seeking. If all the other commissioners agree, we have time next month. We can move this to next month. Mr. Strother can give greater detail on each project so that you reconsider it then. And then going forward, we add some additional steps in this process so that you can actually determine, do you want to establish more money to one area or the other? Because they do have that, do they not?
no. Failure to act on this tonight, you will lose the funding.
I thought you said the deadline was after our next meeting?
No.
Well, the clock has already started running when we received our allocation and I posted the budget. So there is a 30-day window on soliciting comments. Then after that close, and we find out what the allocation is, and we establish our budget, we then advertise that, and it's 30 days to respond to that.
What's the August deadline that you mentioned?
I'm sorry?
What's the August deadline that you mentioned to the
That I have to
commissioner?
submit the package to HUD.
What's that date?
August 15th. The deadline is August 15th.
That you have to submit the package to HUD. So if the board does not act tonight, what happens between tonight and August 15th?
Well, in times past, with a favorable action, we would then assemble a package and then submit it to HUD. But
what if
failure to act tonight, you would not meet the deadline.
And the reason that is because you advertised and we had a 30-day window period of time to act on the advertising of our action with the CBDG money.
Yes, we've already publicly advertised that we'll be making a decision on the use of the funds.
So your understanding, so if I understand correctly, waiting until the August meeting, which is before the 15th, would put us outside of that 30-day period of time, and therefore we would forfeit being able to use the funds for 2018.
Correct. And in the advertisement states that the governing body will be acting tonight. Part of the public notification on step-by-step what our actions would be.
Is there any ability to table it to a date certain? I use that terminology only because it's what I know from ordinance or zoning ordinance stuff. Is there any way to do that, or is that not within the regulations?
I would venture to say no.
Okay.
I mean, it'll be my professional opinion to the administration and the governing body not to tinker with this, because it's something established nationwide that every entity that receives it follows that process. You would fall out of compliance.
And I had one other question just on specifics, the $280,000 on Old Welsh Road between Lukens and Fleming. Is that on both sides of the road or just one side of the road?
Just one side.
And that's the part that includes, that's just that the one block that includes sidewalks, and I believe is that the part that includes retaining walls also?
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons that the cost is not just sidewalks?
Yes.
Fair to say. And the last question, I should have said I had two questions. Because it's CDBG money, it all has to go out prevailing wage, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I would have to add that those two street projects, Parkview and Old Welsh Road, were previously approved by the board, but last year this time, the board agreed to defund these two street projects to start the Edge Hill Road project, which was completed last year. So these are not new projects. It's projects that were defunded by the board to support the Edge Hill Road project, which was completed in the last 10 months.
Right. Okay, Michael, does that finish your questions? Okay. Tom?
Thank you, President. Helps if I turn the microphone on. I think based on what we've heard from Director Strother, I would strongly encourage us to move ahead this evening. But I think a simple corrective action to address what Commissioner Vahey has raised, which I think is valid, this was put out for advertisement back in June. I think that would be the signaling event to cue the board in so that there's sufficient time, as there is with the public, for us to digest what's being proposed and create opportunity for discussion. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right, Commissioner Bowman?
Just that this is a much-needed sidewalk on Old Welsh Road. That's where Willow Hill School is. You got the mall right down the road. There's no sidewalk on either side. So if you're going to have your kids going to school, coming out of that neighborhood in Willow Grove, or even coming out of the Roslyn above Willow Hills Woods, it's very dangerous, very dangerous. So I fully support this.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay. Comments from the public?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. I am very grateful to see some real oversight going on here, and this is an area that has needed it so desperately, so I thank you. I was not able to hear well enough to hear why the sidewalk was so expensive. Commissioner Klein added at some point, could somebody repeat that for me, what it was that made the sidewalk so expensive?
If I heard him correctly, it was retaining walls that were needed as part of the sidewalk construction.
Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Schott?
Yes, and we're paying prevailing wages.
Right.
And it's on a state road.
And it's on a state road.
Yeah, so there's certain standards.
That complicates it. There's restrictions,
Exactly, yep.
flagmen. It's a much more expensive project because of regulatory requirements.
Okay, so again, as I said, I am glad to see the oversight coming really directly from here. This is really heartening. The recent discussion that I had with Mr. Strother about the building that they just did for the 1.6 million, I just asked a simple question whether he knew what the cost per square foot was, and I was directed to put in a right to know. And I'd just like to say that prevents this kind of necessary oversight. We have had HUD monies be used on streets where $400,000 houses are. We have had HUD money be used to the tune of $17 million for 46 units that have mold and other problems with them, as many of you saw very recently. So serious oversight is needed. And when we have a township whose policies are that somebody asks a basic question, I wanted to know if Mr. Strother knew what the cost per square foot of the construction was, which I believe probably is in the 400 range. I still have to get the actual plans. The 2016 documents are no longer posted. But the inability to get a simple answer and a simple question so that residents can do this kind of oversight as well is something that I would ask you to reconsider the policy of. Work that out perhaps with your manager. I have asked many questions recently and been told one of them was about the sewers, and I was told to put in a right to know. Well, in a conversation, I can discuss what those documents are. If I have to put in a right to know, I have to ask for things that would require a slew of documents, and I don't need them. I don't want to burden the township, and you don't want to take away the eyeballs that keep things from being corrupt. So I hope you will reconsider those things, and thank those of you that are looking in after the figures tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the public? Okay. I'm sorry, Commissioner Gillespie?
Okay, prevailing wage, I mean, because this is HUD money, during the green light, because it's HUD money, we have to pay the prevailing wage, correct? And that is, the federal government decides what we're paying these contractors, correct?
Is that correct, Mr. Shuthers?
Yes, it's a federal law.
I mean, it's not like we pulled these numbers out of the air and just said, we're going to pay you all this money, correct?
Correct. In addition to that, I'll be coming back to the board for an action that there's compliance. There's very tedious documentation and certifications that has to be done that is federal law that we have to comply with.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Can we call the question?
Commissioner Schreiber?
Yeah, I would like to call the question, please.
Could I just add something quick? Is that
No, she called for a vote, so we're going to vote on this at this time.
okay? All right,
Okay.
but they shouldn't be doubled.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. I'm sorry? There is a no? Okay. One opposed? Yes.
Just before we leave the agenda, we'd like to call on Van to give us a brief update on the summer food program, if you could.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I'm pleased to announce that the 2018 Summer Youth Meal Program is in its fourth week of successful operation. To date, we have fed 376 meals at no cost to children at the age of 18 years and younger at the Crestmont Park. That has interpolated that we have doubled the number of meals we served for the entirety of last year. Last year was a pilot program. We served 187. This year, as of today, we serve 376. We're able to provide a much more efficient operation. Through your approval, we contracted directly with the Department of Education to become a sponsor, which opened up our opportunities for meals, programs, selection, and we have found a better meal provider. The food is much better. We're much more efficient in getting out. Instead of having 2 employees, we have 1. And with the completion of the Crestmont Clubhouse, we have a place to stage the food, to have it refrigerated and make sure that food is delivered safely to the children at Crestmont Park. And just like, again, thank you for your support in this project.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Van.
You're welcome.
And that's the end of the committee's business.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, at this time, I'd like to call on Vice President Stephen Klein, Chair of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, President Luker. Treasurer Blumenthal is on vacation, therefore there will not be a treasurer's report. However, the treasurer's report is on file at the manager's office if anybody would like to examine it. We'll start with, we have one item on the agenda for this, for the one item, FC 03061918, motion to approve the May expenditures as previously circulated to the board in the amount of $3,950,575.99 and salaries and wages in the amount of $1,822,240.01, and authorize the proper officials to sign vouchers in the payment of bills and contracts as they mature through the month of August 2018, and I so move.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. May we have a roll call, please?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And that concludes the Finance Committee's agenda.
Thank you very much, Vice President Klein. At this time, public comment.
Hi, I'm Joanna Keim. I live at 1843 Guernsey Avenue.
Could you repeat your name again, please?
Joanna Keim.
Time, okay.
I'm new to the township, 4 years. I'm a little newer to local government idea and started wanting to pay attention. Sort of had to have a crash course because I live right between the new Y thing and the whole Metaplex thing. So in the last week, I've learned a lot. And today, I discovered that my street was rezoned in April 2017. I'm really disheartened. I came from a small rural township where people talk to us. And shoot, I'm really choked up. I don't know how that happened. And I'm curious. I have a couple questions. Question one, how was that proposed change shared with all of us? Because I feel like I missed something. Did something come in the mail that I ignored?
I'm sorry, Ms. I didn't hear what you said when the action thing that happened about your street.
It was rezoned, yes, in 2018.
Your street was rezoned. Which street do you live on again?
Guernsey. I was informed today that it used to be residential, and now it is, I have it written down somewhere, Main Street Village,
Which part, well,
1843 Guernsey, between 611 and Huntington.
and how close, are you close to Huntington, close to Cincinnati?
I'm right smack in the middle.
I don't believe, I'm looking now, I chaired the zoning ordinance committee. We did not, there were some minor
So there's nothing different.
What's that?
So there's nothing different. Like it's still a residential street.
I'm looking. We zoned some small areas from residential to commercial and commercial to residential, depending on certain specifics. I don't remember anything happening in that area. Those properties that are out on Old York Road that were commercial, stayed commercial, they were changed from, I believe, don't quote me on this, I think it was at the time, town commercial, and they were changed to a Main Street district. But it was the same parcels, it was not any additional parcels.
On the map I saw today, it says Main Street Village on our street.
You're on Guernsey, you're halfway between?
Yeah.
You're basically across from those
Sunrise.
Test Garage and Sunrise? Are you on? Well, you have to be on the because there's only one side of that street.
I'm on the side. Yeah.
That is still zoned. Give me a second so I can go back to my color codes.
Who informed you of the change?
I got an email with a map.
Okay.
From the township? R4, it's still
A
zoned
neighbor.
R4, and it was zoned R4 before.
Okay, so it's nothing
I don't know
different.
exactly where your address is on the street, but if you're telling me it's in the middle,
Okay.
it's on the north side of Guernsey.
Okay. I feel much better.
It's still it was R4 before, and it's still R4.
Okay.
So, I mean, I can, after the
No,
meeting, I-
this is
you're
not
out
a
of order.
dialogue.
No, you're out of order. No, you're out of order.
Whose ward is this?
Ben's.
Ben,
Okay. You want to follow up with? Okay.
I can talk.
I mean, I can show you on a map after the meeting.
I'm happy to follow up with Ben.
That's fine.
I was just more concerned that something took place that we didn't even know about. And if that didn't happen, I feel much better.
The only thing I will tell you is that we went through a very extensive process in approving the new zoning ordinance from last year. We had countless meetings here. There was advertisements that were put out through all the commissioners. There was advertisements put out in the tax bills before the ordinance was adopted. We had, I mean, I can't even count the.
I think that's what I need to learn just from having moved from somewhere where it was just a couple of neighbors
I understand.
to a
But
township.
there was an extensive process that took place, and many meetings that were put out into the public, and meetings that happened here.
That answers all my other questions too, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. Any other comments from the public? Name and address, please, and if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes.
I'll be brief.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kate Fisher. I live at 1215 Johnston Ave. I just wanted to introduce myself. I opened my business over at 2878 Limekiln Pike. I have a tutoring company, MK Tutoring. I just wanted to introduce myself because not only do I live in the community, my children go to school here, but I wanted to open my business here.
What kind of business is that again?
It's a tutoring company. So we do
tutoring?
Yep, we do one-to-one tutoring, and we do SAT prep classes. We do a lot of different types of things. We're very personalized. We're not a chain. Every student gets a learning plan. We really customize it for each student. We know Pennsylvania. We know the curriculum, and we feel that we can definitely benefit and make a difference here. I am a full-time teacher. I teach upper school science at Malvern Prep. So I get to do this in all my free time. So I just wanted to introduce myself.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Okay. Thank you for that comment.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So, again, this was something I wanted to add to clarify. I emailed the link. It was a link from the township website, okay? And the only thing I can think of is that perhaps I had an old link, but the Guernsey and Eckerd areas on that township map are colored brown, Main Street Village Center. So I'll have to look at it again. It's possible I had an old link stored somewhere instead of the final link, but at some point they were zoned Village Center, Guernsey and Eckerd. And so perhaps I stored it and then didn't replace it with the final one that got changed back. But we can show you it. I didn't draw it up myself. The other thing is you had somebody who came earlier tonight and talked about the Bader Road flooding. When I heard that the BET project was going to send their water down to the Tookonie, I actually went to the Tookonie because I knew they were still having problems there. I've worked with many of the people there for years and the people down in Cheltenham further. So I went down to talk to them to see if their problems had been solved and that it would be okay to have a little extra water since the water collection system is going to be so good at BET that everything will be better. That means more water will be sent down to the Bader Road area, and it's not good. Mr. Lefevre was trying to help them get a buyout again just a few years ago. We have all the papers from that. Okay, so this is not okay. BET assured them it wasn't going to go down to where they're flooding at the bottom of Rydell and at the bottom of Vinegar Hill, but now he's sending it down to another place that's been so bad you had to buy out multiple homes there. And while we're on that topic, please, that whole Bader Road area that has become a park actually needs to be planted with trees. It's grass, and grass does not absorb anything like trees, which absorb hundreds and hundreds of gallons. So please, I have written to the EAC and asked, will you please put some trees there too? And while we're on the subject of the environment, a travesty of the greatest proportions as I drive down Valley Road and look at Carebrook Park, which had begun to be covered with vines like the Boy Scout Preserve, and now has been absolutely drenched in pesticides and everything killed. I am beside myself to think that we could put somebody in charge of our parks who would not understand. I don't know how many of you washed a bug off your windshield in the last week or two, okay? But on the way here, my husband and I discussed that. We used to stop at a gas station all the time and wash the windshields. There's no bugs. They support the birds. The birds support the next level of mammals. We are doing ourselves in. There's a creek back there. It's not okay. And Susquehanna Road has just received the roadside spraying. I called and was told there was no roadside spraying planned. I called the county and I called the state. And yet, right after I called, the Susquehanna Road is completely browned out in ways that you can't imagine because it isn't solving the problem. You can see that the things away from the road are browned out and sprayed, and the things hanging over the road, half of them are still there.
Okay, so, Ms. Lehman, your 3 minutes are up.
Okay. Would you please let me just finish the items because there are so many and there's not a way to do it. I would like not to see this whole township with huge do not solicit signs. It doesn't keep the solicitors out of the neighborhoods. They still are in the neighborhoods. Just maybe saying, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your sign, okay? We don't want the solicitors in the neighborhoods. We need to work together to get them out, okay? And posting it online doesn't help, I know, because I try and do it. Salem Baptist Church, I wish Commissioner Myers had recused herself. She's a fundraiser for PAL, who's going to be using that facility. Am I right? So you had a personal interest in soliciting funds.
I do not have a
for that.
financial interest.
Well, you don't have a financial interest,
Ms. Lehman,
but
that's a comment that's your personal
yeah,
comment. but
I mean,
keep
I
moving.
do wish that she had, at the very least, said, PAL uses this
Okay, could you
facility,
wrap it
we
up,
want to
please?
renovate it, and I am in
That
charge
subject is
of
passed.
donor funds.
Okay, go
Yes.
ahead.
Okay, Salem Baptist Church also was part recently of a, not too long back, of a very unpleasant situation where Risa Furman paid $1.6 million for wrongfully prosecuting a contractor there. And that should be looked into. We are back again asking public officials to intervene for us, and that
Okay,
whole
I don't
thing
think that
was not
subject should be
okay.
discussed right now. Go
Yes,
ahead.
I'd like you to look into that, and I'd like you to consider that when you consider who you're waiving over $60,000 for, and that you didn't even get a figure to
All
come.
right, could you
So
close your
thank you.
comments, please?
Yeah, that's it. I am finished, and thank you for allowing me to finish. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
All right, that concludes our formal agenda. So at this time, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Commissioner Tom Hecker.
Thank you, President Luker. I appreciate the opportunity this evening to share publicly what I've had the opportunity to share individually with each of my fellow commissioners, and that is the news that I will be resigning as Ward 10 Commissioner next month on or about August 15th. And so the August board meeting will be my last meeting as Ward 10 Commissioner. To borrow a phrase that I have heard, it has been my privilege to have this honor and my honor to have this privilege. This has been the experience of a lifetime for me, dating back to the early days of my initial campaign, to the ice storms that hit what felt like a minute after we were first sworn in back in 2014, and all of the important work that we've had the opportunity to do together in the last 4.5 years. It has been the experience of a lifetime. So I have mixed emotions because I see good things ahead for this township, and there's a part of me that would really like to continue to be a part of these strategic initiatives. But to quote John Lennon, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And the good news for me and my family is that our plans involve us remaining active members here in Abington Township. We're going to stay in this community. Our boys will have the opportunity to finish their schooling. Many of you know, we've been very public over the years about my wife's struggle with multiple sclerosis. She is my champion and my rock. And this move to the new home sets us up now and into the future. So it is absolutely the right move. And while I'm disappointed to be stepping down, I'm happy we can be doing this together. So I'm going to remain engaged. I'm not going away. I will figure out how to give back to this community in new ways. And you might see me here from time to time. I don't know. So, Wayne, I appreciate you taking the opportunity to deviate from protocol tonight to give me the chance to speak. And I want to thank each of you up here for your kindness and support when I reached out to you to let you know the news. It's been a pleasure to work with you all. Now, I'm going to stop there for tonight. I will hope you'll indulge me for a few minutes at my final board meeting to have a few last parting messages to my colleagues. But just know that I have an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the opportunity to have represented this community for the last 4.5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hecker. And I'll start with Commissioner Tom Bowman for closing comments.
No comment tonight. Thank you, Mr. President.
Commissioner Dennis Sapone.
No comment.
Commissioner Carol Gillespie.
Well, I do have a comment. First of all, Tom, you've done an excellent job. And I loved sitting next to you, although I love sitting next to you, too. Anyway, I do want to thank everyone that participated in the 4th of July parade. It was, the whole day was a great event. I want to thank the police department for a stellar job. It is overwhelming. If anyone ever knew, they think that we just throw this together. No. They did an excellent, excellent job. Public Works with your trucks and your whatever on all the side streets. People don't realize, you know, they were all there having fun, that they are really, really being protected by their township. Emergency management, they were all involved. It was just a wonderful day, and there were quite a few people there, large crowds. So thank you very much for everything you did, and to our committee. The Greater Glenside Patriotic Committee is a wonderful group. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fahey.
I'll try to keep this brief, as I think I unduly prolonged the proceedings tonight. But first, I wanted to make everybody aware of the I Am Abington Arts Festival, which is occurring on July 14th, this Saturday, at Glenside Walden Park. The school district is probably cringing that I'm calling Glenside Walden Park, but that's what we call it. We'll start at 10 a.m. and go until about 7 p.m. The students from the Abington School District will be out showing their talents to the township, so please come out and support them. Tom, we'll miss you. You've been a mentor, and I appreciate all you've done for the township and for me. Thank you. And lastly, I want to pay tribute to Sergeant Dan Buckley, retired sergeant, who passed away recently. My term on this board did not coincide with his service to the police department in this township, but my service to the state representative's office did. And working for the state representative's office, you see so many people come through the door who need so much when you have so little to give. And our staff, Larry Mateo and Sergeant Buckley, moved heaven and earth to find the funds or whatever other resource that could be found to help every single citizen in this township. So, you know, he will be missed. He was a great asset and a true public servant. So I just want to pay tribute to him tonight.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Schreiber.
miss you, Tom. I'll say that first. I want say ditto on the Dan Buckley tribute. He helped us set up our original Roslyn Pet Fair. He was a big animal lover, and I used to run into him at the dog park, and so we always talked about animals. And so, yes, he will be missed by the township. I want to congratulate our new sergeant, Officer Troy Senni, and also remind everybody about the food drive this Saturday at both the Giant in Roslyn and also in Huntington Valley. That's from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. That's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber. Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. As mentioned, Sergeant Dan Buckley passed away on July 3rd. He was very special to many of us. He retired in 2011, and for those of us on the board that were here, his 30-some years in Abington Township were huge, especially as commander of community policing, where so many of the initiatives of community policing were started, and he was a part of that. And Commissioner Vahey, absolutely, Dan Buckley was the go-to guy when you needed something done in this township. He found the way to get it done. He was very special, a friend to many of us, and he will be really missed.
Thank you. Commissioner Brodsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Briefly, I want to just encourage everybody to come out for the food drive at the Huntington Valley Giant, I believe it is, and that actually is on the border of my ward and Commissioner Rothman's ward, so I will encourage everyone to come out for that. And also, I'll reserve the comments for next month, but I want to express my heartfelt thanks to Tom for a well-done job and what you've done, and we hopefully you stay around for a long time. For reasons you and I discussed, you know my thoughts on the issue, and we'll talk about this next week, but thank you for your service, and we appreciate that. Please stay around. Your guidance and insight over the last year for me has been invaluable. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Rothman.
Thank you, President Luker. First and closest to my heart, thank you to those who've reached out to me to congratulate me on the addition to the family. Those of you with daughters should expect more questions from me than ever before. The doctor needed to move to the next office today after otherwise we'd still be there asking questions. So all kidding aside, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, and thank you for your support there. Though I will discuss this further at August's meeting, one of the great things that happened to me in my life also was being friends with and working with Tom Hecker. So we've had some conversations about work-related stuff, family things, and you're just a great guy. And yeah, it's really been a pleasure to work with you. I know you won't be gone, but you know these are pretty easy meetings to not have to say to our families, "Hey, we're going out to go hang out." You know, we kind of need to be here. So it's been nice to see you at these regularly scheduled meetings, and you're a great family guy, and you and your wife are both lucky to have each other. So all the best, and you know, we'll probably talk to you in an hour after this anyway, but that was public, and there you go. Love you, man.
Thank you, Drew. Jimmy D.
Thanks, Commissioner Luker. Commissioner Tom, I'll get you next month. All right, I'll make it quick. When driving through Abington Township, please drive like your kids live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tom, I'll get you next month to provided baby boy Sanchez isn't here a few days early, and congratulations to Commissioner Rothman on the addition. Hopefully they never date, but this is, and at least we have
I second that motion.
This is a very, prolific board too. I think maybe we're setting the record for children added well in office. But yes, again, Tom, next month, if not, I'll submit something in writing to you. I think you know how I feel about you, and it's it's been an honor. And that's all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. Just wanted to welcome Ms. Fisher to the North Hills Limecombe Pike neighborhood. We hope that her business does really well there. And that's all for me.
Thank you. Commissioner Klein.
No comment.
Okay, and lastly, I just want to, we were mentioning about Dan Buckley passing. This past week, I sadly announced the passing of Mrs. Lillian Palmer, a long-standing resident in Ward 5. Now, Mrs. Palmer is the mother of Peggy Palmer, who many of you know, and also the infamous, my friend, Johnny Palmer, who's affectionately known as the mayor of Crestmont Park for all the work that he's done over the years of community service to the park in general and the pool area, and just a selfish guy that I feel very close to. But the services for his mother will be this Saturday, July 14th, with services at First Baptist Church of Crestmont, Dr. Pastor Jerome Coleman presiding. And lastly, I say goodbye and thank you to a true friend, Commissioner Tom Hecker, a real professional and a great commissioner and an all-around sincere and honest gentleman. I personally want to thank you for all the good conversation we've had on your long trips to and from work. For those of you who don't know, I think you have an hour and a half to 2 hour commute, hour and a half commute to work, and an hour and a half from work. But I sincerely hope and wish only the best for you, your lovely wife, and your children. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, and thank you all for attending. Thank you.